recording. So
Okay.
today is Sunday, July 14th, 2024, and we're in Ames, Iowa. And my daughter Kitty is going to interview my father, her grandfather, Walt Tronowski.
Okay.
And
Well, so what's your first question?
what's your first question, Kitty?
It's when you were a kid, how much was a quart of milk?
Well, I listened to what Kathleen, your grandmother, and
Uh-huh.
my wife said. I remember, I don't know the price, but I do remember that we had milk. There was a milkman, and we somehow got milk in bottles for sure. And that was, I think, brought in on a regular basis. And that's really about all I remember about that.
In glass quart jugs?
What did you say?
Was it usually in glass
Yes,
quarts?
it was definitely in glass bottles, right?
Glass quart bottles, yeah.
Glass quart bottles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well.
And what was your earliest memory?
Well, I say my earliest memory goes back to where my mother would take me into the kitchen area and put me in a high chair,
Mm-hmm.
and she would feed me. And I remember one thing is she often would put what she was going to give to me in her mouth first.
Really?
And then she would
To chew it up, like
chew it up,
make it softer?
and right, and
Huh.
give it to me.
Yeah.
I remember my father worked in the steel mill,
Mm-hmm.
and he had different shifts, and one shift he had was early in the morning. I'm not sure how early. I'd say, let's say 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes he was there, and then he'd get ready to go to work. And I think at that time he walked to the mill, which was about a mile away.
And this was in Conemaugh.
What?
This was in Conemaugh,
In Conemaugh,
Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
120 Oak Street. You were born
And
there.
120 Oak Street,
Mm-hmm.
right. And that was where I was actually born, in that house.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I lived,
Grew
and we
up.
still have the house in
Yeah,
there.
that's amazing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So he could walk to the mill from there? Because I don't remember where that was
Yes.
in relation to your house.
No,
I've
it was
been
down the street down towards the bridge, and then you had to cross the bridge and over
Uh-huh.
into Franklin.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And I'm pretty sure he walked to
He
work.
occasionally would walk, yeah.
Now I was born in 1938, so this was about 1940.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, one memory that I remember for sure was my 3rd birthday, because I was in our backyard, and I remember saying to myself, I'm going to remember this day forever.
Wow.
And I have, of
And
course.
you
I
did.
repeated that. Right.
Wow, 3 is pretty young for that kind of
Yeah. Anyway.
thought, dedication. What would a 3-year-old birthday party look like in 1941?
All I remember is I had a cake.
You did have a cake?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember having too many friends over at that time.
Yeah.
But it was a family affair. There'd be sometimes a more distant relative that would attend it.
Right.
So I'm really not sure what other memories. I mean, I know at some point I started riding a bicycle, or tricycle rather.
Mm-hmm.
I could ride it up and down the sidewalk that was by our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't really remember a lot.
Yeah.
At some point, my family acquired a 1930 Chrysler, which was the car we drove. And it was, one of the early models.
Yeah, that's an early car.
Right, and we would go places in that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Nice.
So I think
You remember
if I
that? Mm-hmm.
thought a little bit more about this, I might remember more. But
Yeah, that's all right. No, that's good.
Okay.
Kitty, you have a next question?
Who are you named after?
That's a good question. My middle name is Samuel, and my father's name is Samuel Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
My brother's name was Nicholas Alexander,
Mm-hmm.
and so my middle name Samuel came from
Your dad.
my father,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know where Walter came from.
So,
What?
was it, I thought maybe you or Grandma told me it was for close to St. Vladimir's Day. Was it?
I think it might be. Now, the thing is, my sister is 11 days or 11 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, I was sort of a big deal to her.
It's because
Actually,
she would have been a teenager when you were little.
yes.
And so kind of like more like not really a second mother, but a babysitter
sort of like a second
or
mother.
nanny.
She helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I call her, the first thing I'll ask is if she remembers why I was named Walter.
Yeah, let's ask.
And she
So there's no other Walters in your immediate family, like
well, my
brothers or
my
of your
sister's husband
parent,
was named
uncles,
Walter,
or
but that was a
yeah.
Separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
And Walter was there were a number of Walters as I grew up.
That was a more common name in that
It was a much more common
age.
name, right?
Yeah.
And even nationally, like there was
Yeah.
Walter Winchell and
Walter Cronkite, I remember.
and who?
Walter Cronkite.
Walter Cronkite, right? There were a number of famous Walters.
Yeah.
So it wasn't.
It wasn't an unusual name.
No.
But okay, well, we'll ask.
Yeah, and then so I went to first grade. I did not go to kindergarten.
Oh, really? Huh.
I'm not sure why, but certainly, like telling time, a lot of people would teach me how to do it in colors. I remember colors, learning what the colors were
Mm-hmm.
with a box of crayons.
Right.
And then my mother's sister, Ruth, had a son 5 days after I was born.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Eugene was his name,
Mm-hmm.
and we were always close.
Yeah, so you're 5 days apart. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, right.
Right.
We were very, very close.
Yeah,
especially
almost
when we were growing up together. I remember
like brothers. Yeah.
we used to wrestle together.
Yeah.
So that must have been pretty. We were
Uh-huh.
pretty young doing that.
Yeah.
But she might be visiting my mother, and then so she would then maybe take a little time and ask me to name some colors or
Right.
or to check the time, and
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some math, simple math additions or something else.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Okay.
And what is academic achievement that... Wait, I forgot the question. What was a proud academic achievement during your childhood or teenage years?
Wait, I didn't understand it. Say it again?
What was a proud academic achievement that you achieved in your childhood or teenage years?
My childhood, what?
Or teenage years?
Years, what, and this is academic things?
Or any achievement, right, that you're proud of, I think was the question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I guess I remember myself as being, I was a good student.
Mm-hmm.
I also had, someplace along the way, I acquired a chemistry set. There was a series of sets designed for kids called Chemcraft. And I had a simple one. And I remember early on reading about molecules and atoms rather, and distinguishing the difference and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing I remember is sort of a funny thing. When I think it was in first grade, could have been second, but I think it was in first, where they were discussing the atmosphere, and they said the atmosphere is composed of nitrogen and oxygen. And they said nitrogen is symbolized N2, and oxygen is symbolized O2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really bothered. Why did they use the 2? Because I knew that the symbol for nitrogen was N and the symbol for oxygen was O.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
So I had to get that explained, and then also we had a grand piano, a baby grand piano. That was really purchased for my sister, and so it was there in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And so early on, I would pound on the piano and, just make noise from it and so forth. And I started to take piano lessons when I was 8 years old from a Mrs. Kresge. And it was in a house that was dedicated to teaching music. It was called I think the College of Music or something like that. Anyway, and it had a number of teachers in it, and so she taught me the first year or so. I don't remember how long. And she taught me a little bit of singing lessons, but I never really liked those. And I stuck with the piano.
You like the piano, though, yeah.
And then at some point, I moved to, there's a music store in Johnstown Center Park called Weiser's, and they had a German professor there, Reamer, R-O-E-M-E-R.
Mm-hmm.
And I switched to him. And I'm not sure why. I don't know whether there was something I didn't like about Mrs. Kresge or something that my mother didn't like about her or whatever, but it was a good step up for me because Professor Reamer was he was a very good musician. And so that helped me a lot.
Yeah, good.
And I remember I got primarily A's in high school, in grade school, and I don't really remember much more about that.
Details,
I remember my grades are good, and people always thought that I was a pretty smart guy.
Oh, good.
Is that
Nice. Is that all the questions for today?
I think so.
Great. Well, thank you.
okay? Well, thanks.
Mm-hmm.